minds to another exciting live stream with one and only Dillis and myself. Exactly. Today we have picked the absolute, really important topic that we all have experienced at least 10,000 times in our life, right? How to express yourself confidently and with respect at the same time. If we feel something is off in the situation, or if we feel manipulated, or if we feel there's something going on, power dynamics, we can't quite put the finger on it, but we feel still something is off, and what to do. And first of all, let's start as always, as we are on this mission to give really practical and easy tips for real life. Let's start with how to realize that something is off. And we always, as always, we want to share our experience out of our life. So Maya, hand over to you. How do we realize that something is off? What is it in your experience?
Usually for me, it's just like a bodily discomfort. Like it kind of just hits you, when someone says like for example, like a backhanded comment, it just kind of stops you dead in the tracks.
Exactly. There's some
Like, huh?
feeling, first of all. For me as well, it's an emotion and it's an energy. And yes, we talked before the live stream about this, the backhanded thingy in terms of, I want to give an example out of my own experience. What I heard a lot in the past was, so first of all, a gender neutral one that I heard a lot is, oh, that's quite good considering that you haven't studied anything. That would be a backhanded one, right? And then what I have experienced as well in my own professional life, unfortunately, it still exists, is that's quite good for women. So the feeling you get from that, right? That is when you realize, oh, something is completely going off. Do you have other examples? Like what would be your favorite, the ones on the on the podest?
Like something about race with me, but I can't really pull any specific examples, but like, it's just but similar to the whole, oh, you're pretty good for a woman, or oh, you speak pretty good English to be
Oh
a
God,
like
yeah.
what the flip,
I had
But
that one as
anyway,
well.
but it's
So
just literally people showing their ignorance, like
yeah,
literally showing their ignorance without even understanding that they're ignorant. So I
without
just
wanting to get to know you, yeah.
they don't know they're being ignorant. That's the sad part. So I just usually just kind of let it go because they're the one that's being ignorant. It's not me.
Yeah, that's
So
for me as well. A good strategy if you're in a situation where I mean, for me also I try to learn on an everyday basis how important is this now in terms of pick your fight kind of thing. How important, and to let it go. I think it's a good strategy if I realize, oh, the person possibly doesn't even realize what he or she is talking about.
I think it also depends. Okay, I don't let it go all the time. It depends on the person's intellect. If you realize that maybe I shouldn't have said that. That's kind of degrading. But if you kind of have a feeling that the person probably won't get it, there's no point of explaining. But if
Yeah,
that person is kind of, I don't know, if you feel, it depends on how I feel that moment too.
yeah,
So if I want to
that
correct them,
makes
I'll correct them kindly. For my example, I just tell them that I'm a polyglot. Oh, what does that mean? See, that already
Mhm.
put me in a place where I'm like, "Hey, let me just educate you." Like,
Yeah.
I'm like that.
So
So,
that
like,
is
if you wanna come at me like that, Imma come back at you.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So that would be in a situation if the person still is open to talk to you on the same wavelength. I would react in a very kind and kind of, as you say, educating way and saying, no, this is actually my situation. I speak 4 languages as you, I'm a polyglot, I have lived in 7 countries. So my accent doesn't indicate if I speak English well or not.
right, it has
But
nothing to
I
do
had
with
that many
anything.
times as well. And people then think, must be, oh, yes, I had that many times as well. So are you from a foreign country? So how come you're here with us? And so you have to educate them in that sense. Yeah, we could. That's a type where the person probably doesn't want any harm, right? And there's
Right.
probably also not power dynamics involved.
Yeah,
But we have
mostly
to
it
then.
doesn't. Right, right. If it's just a stranger, like, just comments like that, like, there's no power dynamics, I think you've pointed out a very important point. It's the
Yeah,
power dynamics part.
exactly. And then now let's get on to the next one. The next category would be with a power dynamics, or with when another indicator for me would be actually when I sense something is off because the person is trying to steer me in a direction that I don't even want to go. So I had it many times in my experience that I realize the person knows me well. The person knows that I'm interested in this and that, or that I'm responsible for that and that. And still the person insists that I do something completely different. Now, in that situation also, when you feel something is off, I used to, in the past, what was my reaction? I used to kind of freeze and like, okay, how can I analyze this? Because I couldn't place the situation. But then I find it really difficult, and this is what we're going to come to, right? How to then respectfully say something, right? Because your viewers were trying to actually make a point here. It's important to still know how to react to that sort of situation. So if a person, in my past, for example, if a person keeps on saying, yeah, I really appreciate that you're working on this or that you're responsible for this, but we see you in that kind of field. And I'm like, actually, no. What would you, for example, what would you do in that situation?
Like when the person is like quote unquote more powerful than you are, say for
Yes,
example in a
that's what
job
exactly.
in workplace,
If
I
we
would
have a power
actually,
dynamic.
for me, I look at power dynamics this way. Like one moment that like they might have a better title, but we can still create some kind of like conditioning where we kind of, match them. So I think it's okay that we freeze, but it's important that we don't feel bad about freezing. It's just
Yeah.
normal. We can freeze, gather ourselves, maybe the person like walks off or whatever. And then when we're good, when we're calm, we actually invite that person to talk to us.
Hmm.
That gives us more power to actually because then we're in control of the conversation. If they decided to, okay, usually if we ask nicely, they will come to
Yeah,
they
exactly.
will
And
come
if
to
it's
our
also a
conversation.
mindset of wanting to talk, exactly. Yeah. So that is, yeah, that strategy also is, I find that very useful to ask for, oh, can we have a talk when you have 5 minutes, let's do some feedback. That is very useful. And usually that works, as you say, with people who are open for that and also who seek conciliation and who seek to understand the other person, which leads on nicely to the worst case, which is people who do not seek to want to understand you, right?
Well, then I'm sorry, it's a very toxic work, whatever environment that we need to get out. If it keeps happening like that, then it's we need to get out, I think. But I'm also saying this coming from like I've never had a job that's like I've kept for over 2 years. I've always hopped and hopped and hopped. So I've worked in jobs that were just toxic. In a few months, I'm like, you know what, this is some freaking bullshit. Bye.
Yeah.
That's just how
And
I
then you
am.
reject it.
So
Exactly. I agree with that. Yeah. But now, if I may suggest, if we get back to how to actually, if you are in a job that you actually like, let's take that scenario. You have power dynamics and you have somebody, an exception that is not respecting you and that you feel, oh God, something is completely off because the person is trying to manipulate it, but you like your job. So, how to say respectfully that you feel completely uncomfortable? And we say before the live stream, I actually asked ChatGPT for some advice on this, and you had a better version. So, can we just say that as well to share it with the viewers because I love that? So, ChatGPT recommended to me to say, in a situation that you're calm, as you said, and where you are on the same kind of wavelength and where you want to invite the other person to give feedback, you could say, I feel quite uncomfortable with how often our conversations involve backhanded compliments or involve some sort of interest of you that I don't share. Okay. Now, can you recite what you would say?
what you've just said is like very suitable for like a suit and tie
Yeah.
situation, which I'm not really like into that much. Like I'm right here in Western North Carolina. We're a bunch of rednecks and hillbillies. So what did I say earlier? I can't remember. Like, oh, I smell hate in the air. I just
Yeah.
like pointed out, but like, that's not appropriate.
Yeah, but
Like
that
for
would be
some
the same in
situations.
a family situation or with friends, because let's be very, yeah, transparent. The same thing could happen in a family situation with family members, or it could happen also in a party kind of with a friends gathering. I
Oh,
had that as well.
definitely. Friends gathering party. I'm like, I smell hate. Are you hating? Like just point out exactly what they're doing in like a really short sentence and then just step away and let them, leave them with it. Or there's another way that I was thinking of when you were just talking about this just now. Maybe we can just be like, flip it back onto them. what's wrong with you? Are you okay?
Yes,
I
that
mean, like,
one.
not in a it could be in a demeaning manner, but it can also be like, because like usually when people do that, it's 100% coming from something that's
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe
Yeah,
that
what
person's going through a
put
hard
it
time.
back
Maybe
to them, like, what do you mean? Even asking them to explain it to you, what do they mean?
maybe that person's going through some kind of hard time and they don't even know they're like,
Yeah.
lashing out subtly. Usually
Yeah,
that's
to
the
ask
case.
them
So
what is actually how they are. Are you okay? What do you mean? I don't get what you're saying. That could be in the scenario with somebody who you actually care for, in terms of if it's your friends that you feel, oh, this is off, but the person must be going through something, right? Yeah.
maybe not, maybe someone that's not even like, maybe even a stranger. Like I was listening to something by Layla Hormozy, Alex Hormozy's wife.
Leila Mosi, yes.
Yesterday, she was talking about, leadership and stuff. And like one thing that really stood out to me, what she said is that like, even if you say if you hire like a new team member or whatever, you don't know this person. If you don't, usually when we think, we don't know this person, we probably don't care about a person. But the thing about caring for another person is that we have to just start caring. Then the real care will start happening. I mean, these are not her words, but that's what I
Yeah.
gathered. So it's just, I think it's the same situation. Like if we kind of just, I mean, like, it just depends. We can be like, hey, quit hating. Or you've been
Mhm.
hating. Are you hating like
Yeah,
this?
exactly, to
Or,
point it
hey,
out.
are you okay? It just
Hmm.
depends on what we want to do.
Depends on how you feel for the person. But I also agree, if it's in a family with friends, I would actually point out how it makes me feel. I would possibly also, first of all, let the freeze happen. As you said nicely, it's allowed to be freezing. But then if I realize I'm freezing and I feel really weird, I would then later on also say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Because you made me feel bad. I would say that how it made me feel.
Definitely, definitely, especially with friends. Family, I think family dynamics are quite different because usually these are people that we grew up with or we've been around. So we've kind of
Yeah.
have like a stratification of like different issues, I guess, like communications or whatever. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I
it's
think with
more
friends,
complex. It's more complex
yeah, it's more
because
complex.
you have far more history together. But still, I think what is important, I think the message we wanted to get across last time, remember when we talked about power dynamics? Power dynamics also in a micro situation, even with friends, can happen when something makes you feel off. Let's just put it like that. It can be for whatever reason. And I think what is so important to not just hold back and then say, yeah, it depends how you care for that person. But if you care for the person, to not let it go, to maybe let pass some time and to address it, because these are the instant that make you even bond more if it works out that you then manage to talk to the person, right?
That's very true. Yes, that's
So
very true.
I guess that's the thing. But then if you realize through that conversation that the person is generally not interested in your position, then either it must be an issue the person is going through, or the person has been trying to manipulate you, or is going through some envy, or is going through some feeling attacked by you, or whatever. But then I agree with you as well. It's so important to let that problem be the problem of the person and not to adopt it.
Yes, I love how you just put it. Yes, that's their problem. Then, like after a certain
Exactly.
like trial with like trying to fix the problem. Yep.
Do you also have that then? I still have, I mean, if I then realize, oh, that person is going through some issues in her or his life, I still need some time to switch that off. To switch that off in terms of saying, accepting that it's the person and that I can offer help, but that's all I can do. I cannot adopt. But still, I need some time to switch it off because I always feel, the person could do that, the person could do that, because you see the possibilities maybe coming up, but it's not your problem. So how far do you go to help? That's the thing.
I guess back to what you were saying earlier, how much you like that person.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on the relationship you have.
Yep.
But it's definitely so for me. What I learned, whenever you feel something it off, it can be the power dynamics, but it can also be this. Yeah, as you said, there's different layers. It can be that there's some power coming through for what maybe also the desires of the other person, whatever the other person wants from his or her life. But how does power make us feel when it's kind of off in terms of there's positive and negative power, isn't there? There's positive power that empowers you because the other person gives you positive energy, but there's also this energy that makes you ooh, I'm being steered here, I'm being controlled. That is the one we want to address, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes. I think this is why, because I used to work at the behavioral health sector, and
Mm-hmm.
actually, I still went to a meeting this past Monday where we're talking about how important it is to actually have like I think it's called person-based communication. I mean, to me, it's just trauma informed, but without using the word
Okay.
trauma.
Yeah.
So it's instead of calling up, say, instead of saying that, hey, that person's homeless, we say something like, we only recognize that this person's only homeless now. Like
Yeah. This is
that
now in the
homelessness
situation.
is not their identity.
It's
So
not
it's
there exactly. Not let's not label them. It's not always like that. Exactly.
right.
That's so powerful because that is also what creates power, kind of, or what creates or what makes other people feel bad if we do that ourselves, if we label them. Oh, you are a middle-aged person. If somebody addresses me like that, I will completely switch off, because this is not my identity. I don't define myself by my age.
And maybe sometimes it's not just about identity. Like, I'm sure you know how offended I was when someone told me that my childhood trauma came from the bad actions of my past life. That really pissed me off.
Yeah.
That wasn't like an identity thing, but it felt like, I don't know, it felt like I understand that, as adults now, we take responsibilities for now.
Hmm.
But I was a child. Like it's different. So like,
Yeah.
how would you explain it? Because it's not really identity
You
based,
felt
right?
being judged totally unfairly. Like it's a broad judgment, and it's something that judges your whole life, and you can't be held responsible for your, like, even previous lives. I mean, come on, how can the person can always say, okay, my impression is, or how do you feel about this is how I feel, but the person cannot say you are, because that's always a judgment and very general, like, okay, I kind of explained to you how your previous life was. No, we can't do that. It's completely off. That is off. Yeah,
Right.
definitely, I
I
would feel
felt
off.
I felt like it was a comment of shutting down, like just
Mhm.
shh, I don't want to hear you no more. Like very dismissive.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
also
when
degrading. It's simply degrading
it is
because
degrading.
it
It's like
degrades your whole
when
life. I mean, come on, this is.
it's like when a friend comes to you and maybe that friend had like a really bad week and she opens up and tells you about her bad week and you tell her to just let go.
Yeah,
Like,
that doesn't help.
no, no,
Doesn't help.
that's
Yeah.
very dismissive.
Exactly. It's kind of exactly, it's dismissing that the other person is sharing something with you. So first of all, be respectful that the other person is sharing this with you. And I think, did we not also mention that in one of our previous sessions, that the first thing we can do, we can offer to the person, is first of all saying thank you for sharing that with me, and just listen, you know?
Right.
And that's already a gift, because I received the gift, the person is sharing personal stories with me. Okay, thank you for sharing. And then, do you want anything from me for that? Do you want any advice? And if the person doesn't want to, just leave the person. That's what I would say to that person who judged you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I
that was
felt
not just
judged.
a judgment,
Exactly.
that was a big one. That was, even, I would say, it's an insult, because you can't just judge a person's life. It's no.
Yes.
So I really admire you for getting over that, because we have to, when we get strong, like, judgments. Well, that was a backhanded insult, actually, I would say, if I may,
It
because
was kind of, yeah.
if we get strong ones like that, kind of hidden in the form of I give you advice, then it hurts more, because we think it's advice, but actually it's an insult. You have
Yeah.
to actually unpack that package, and it's not in a ribbon. Nice. It's not a gift.
That person was not listening at all the whole time. It's just like a bunch of advice that doesn't fit. But what bothered me about it is that this person talks about compassion and listening to the other person. Like, how? Like, what? Do you not see that this is not freaking listening skills? I actually spent over a year. This is how much I wanted to be friends, stay friends with her. I actually spent over a year trying to explain things to her in many different perspectives. I tried to put it in
Mhm.
many different ways. Nope.
And yeah, And all you needed, or all you wanted, if I understand you correctly, was to get her to understand your perspective, right? Just to understand your perspective. You didn't
It's
want
not
any
even
judgments or advice, right?
honestly, at the end of the day, yes, it started with my situation, but because of her following her stature, her religious stature, she's got such a huge following. I kept thinking that if she says this, if she talks just like this to other people that come to her with trauma, how harmful it is. Most people would probably not want to say anything back because of her stature. I did.
That's
I
another
had to say
one.
something. I had to correct her. I don't give a shit if she's
Mhm.
in robes, if she
Yeah.
has a title. I
That
don't
is actually a
care.
good situation for a good example for when it's power dynamics according to status. Because that was a high status person, and usually what happens, people out of status say, okay, the person must be right. They even then induce correctness, but it doesn't mean the status doesn't give you the oh, everything I say is right. No.
Right. And then justify it with some kind of like Buddhist reasoning or like system reasoning, which
Mm.
that means nothing to me, honestly. That's how I am. But I have to make sure she understands, because of how literally a lot of people that goes to her probably suffer from deep trauma that they couldn't talk about.
It's
And
very dangerous,
because
actually. Yeah, it's
very
very
dangerous.
dangerous.
That's why I had to correct her. That's
Um,
why I spent over a year. It's not just about
mm,
me literally. I kept thinking, I was like, oh my God, like these people can self-harm because you said this stupid shit. Like, I'm sorry, this
yeah.
stupid shit.
Actually, and this is nicely, because this is the third point we wanted to make, why it is so important to then speak up with confidence, right? This is what we want to bring across today. The importance is, as we just said, with this extremely negative example, unfortunately, but you mastered it really, hats off, you mastered it really well. No, honestly, because it was a big one, and it is so important because it can harm our well-being. It can harm our mental health. It can harm us for years, because we think if you say that to a child, the child will think, "Oh my God, there's something wrong with me." So you can really completely derail a person's life if the person is not aware of that. So
Oh yes. It took me months to like work on it to where to where I feel okay now. Even though I was
yeah.
still fighting, against it, I wasn't. Because
Mm.
in my head, I had all these like battle inside of my head. I'm like, on one hand, I understand that I need to take accountability of my life because I'm an adult now. But on the other hand, this kind of stuff,
Yeah. And I think the act of then saying something, or reacting how you did now, it helps us also to give that problem of badly judging or giving a backhanded compliment or insulting them, or giving it back to the person, of not letting it be inside you the whole time. Because we talked about that, I think, last time as well. As long as we don't say anything, the communication helps us as well to work it through. And if it helps, like you did as well, if I may say that, it helps to write it down first, to structure our thoughts, to put a word on it, and to identify. I mean, in my case, it helps me a lot sometimes to vocalize it, to say, okay, this is, sorry, to verbalize, I want to say, this is the word I put on what I just have lived through, because sometimes you can't even position the situation. You say, what have I just lived? What was that?
exactly.
And so I need to put a word on it first. So I need to write it, and then I invite the other person to talk.
Oh, for me, since I've only communicated with her through email, it's just always been writing.
Ah, very
Just
good.
always been
Yeah.
writing. But it took me a long time. It took me over 1 year writing over and over again, like the different perspective, for
Mm-hmm.
me to actually be able to verbalize it. That's how deeply it hurt me.
Yeah, and that shows why it is important to speak up confidently, or to get to the point to be able to speak up confidently, because otherwise it stays in our system and it makes us go through really pain.
Yeah, and the words of that person, even when you cut the person off, the words of that person just kind of reverberates in you because it
Yeah,
leaves you to it. That's it. That person don't care. It's
exactly.
not hurting them.
So yeah, so that example, thank you for sharing this, honestly, because it's a big one. But that extreme example just drives home how important it is to express Well, we call this express yourself confidently, but it can also be without confidence. Let's not label it as well. It can also be in a situation where you feel really, really weak. I have done that once as well. I said, listen, I feel really bad now. I feel weak. I'm coming from a weak point, but can I have a talk with you? Can I have a word? Because this needs to be said now. And so I did it even in a week. You know, the confidence, I think, comes through the talking, but you need to make a first step. So maybe what do we want to leave our viewers with as a final word? For me, it would be to encourage them. Dear viewers, we'd like to encourage you, whatever nano micro situation you have next that you feel bad, to say something or find the time to say something, right?
Either say something to that person when it's safe for your emotional help. If not, then say it to like a friend or a group of friends that you know will support you instead of like
To get some,
judge you.
yes, exactly.
That's very important, that support.
To use the support network first before you make the step. Thank you for that. Okay, that's the time for today is already unfortunately past, but dear viewers, we do another one, right, in 2 weeks' time. So stay tuned and we see you in the next video.